I want you to just picture a scenario for a second. It is 5 a.m., your alarm goes off, and the room is just pitch black. The air is freezing, your eyes are incredibly heavy, and every single fiber of your being is screaming at you to just stay under the covers.
Oh, I know that exact feeling. We all do.
Right. But you drag yourself out of bed anyway, you grab your checklist, you stumble into the kitchen, and you just start going through the motions. And you do this because you have been told over and over again by, countless self-help gurus and internet billionaires that this specific routine is the secret.
Yeah, that it's the ultimate barrier to entry for success.
Exactly. The narrative is that if you conquer the morning, you conquer the day, and you finally join the ranks of the elite, unstoppable forces of nature.
Well, the reality of that morning looks vastly different for the massive majority of people who are actually trying it.
It is an absolute disaster. You end up sitting at your desk an hour later, completely exhausted, staring blankly at a glowing screen, trying to form even a single coherent thought.
Yeah, you certainly don't feel like a CEO.
Not at all. You feel sluggish, you feel irritable, and physically terrible. And the worst part is the psychological toll, honestly. You sit there looking at this blinking cursor, wondering, what am I doing wrong? Why do I lack the basic discipline to make this work when literally everyone else seems to be thriving?
And that psychological toll is profound because, the premise of the failure is entirely backwards. I want to say this right out of the gate to you, the listener, who might be trying to force this habit right now. You aren't doing anything wrong.
Wait. Really, it's not just a willpower issue.
No, not at all. If you have tried to become a so-called morning person and failed repeatedly, it is absolutely not a lack of willpower. It is not a character flaw. It's not a deficit in your drive. You are experiencing a profound biological mismatch.
A biological mismatch?
Yes. You are taking your unique genetic coding and essentially fighting a war against it.
That reframing right there, that is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. Because today, we are taking a hard, unapologetically scientific look at the whole 5 a.m. club productivity myth.
And it is a pervasive myth.
It really is. We have a massive stack of sources to work through today to really get to the bottom of this. We are pulling from the 2016 clinical research by sleep specialist Dr. Michael Brewis on genetic chronotypes, plus a pivotal 2019 study from the Journal of Sleep Research that tracks the actual chemical effects of forced early waking.
Right, and we're also digging into that massive 2023 Nature Communications study on sleep duration and brain degradation.
Yes, along with some really fascinating historical and biographical notes on some of the world's most successful figures.
So we're going to completely unpack the actual neuroscience of how the brain wakes up, explore those genetically determined chronotypes, and ideally shift the entire conversation away from arbitrary times on a clock.
The goal is to move toward personalized biological optimization.
Exactly.
Because looking at this stack of research, the science proves that the traditional hustle culture advice isn't just ineffective, it is actively destroying your cognitive output.
It's literally making you worse at your job.
Yes. But before we get into the heavy neuroscience and the cortisol data, we really have to look at the cultural myth that convinced us to set those 5 a.m. alarms in the first place. The explosion of this early rising trend is inescapable.
Oh, totally inescapable.
Books like the 5 a.m. Club and the Miracle Morning have just saturated the market, essentially equating early rising with, moral virtue. They frame it so that to achieve anything meaningful, you must beat the sun.
Right. The messaging has completely shifted from a simple productivity tip to a moral imperative. Waking up early is framed as evidence of hard work and inevitable success.
Like if you sleep in, you are lazy.
Exactly. And if you wake up at 4 a.m., you are dedicated.
And the evidence they use to back this up always relies on the exact same handful of famous examples. You read any of these blogs, and they inevitably point out that Apple CEO Tim Cook wakes up at 3:45 a.m.
Or they mention Michelle Obama being in the gym at 4:30 a.m.
Right. And from those specific examples, the productivity influencers make this massive, sweeping, logical leap. They observe that highly successful people wake up early, and therefore they conclude that early rising causes success.
And the statistical framework behind that conclusion is just wildly flawed.
It is so infuriating when you actually break down the logic. Assuming that waking up at 5 a.m. makes you a CEO is like assuming wearing size 16 shoes makes you a basketball star.
That is a perfect analogy.
We are fundamentally confusing a correlation with a cause. You don't put on massive sneakers, lace them up, and suddenly grow to 7 feet tall with a perfect jump shot.
Right, you don't. And the popular psychology term for this specific logical error is survivorship bias. It represents a massive blind spot in how we process information, and frankly, it serves as the entire foundation of the 5 a.m. myth.
So walk me through how survivorship bias actually distorts our view of sleep and productivity.
Sure, consider who is writing the best-selling books on morning routines, or who is giving the viral interviews about crushing the day before dawn. We only hear the loud, highly publicized success stories of the natural early risers.
So they are the survivors in this specific cultural data set.
Exactly. Because they feel incredible at 5 a.m. and have achieved great things, they naturally attribute their success to the hour they wake up. What gets completely omitted from the cultural conversation are the thousands of massively successful people who naturally wake up at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., or even noon.
We just don't see the full data.
No, we only see the loudest slice of it.
So we are essentially taking biological advice from a tiny subset of people who are genetically wired to thrive at that hour. And we're assuming their specific biology can be copied by everyone else through sheer grit.
That is the fundamental error. And bursting that bubble is quite simple when we start examining the counter evidence. I mean, we have a robust roster of legendary historical and contemporary figures who operated on vastly different schedules.
Who completely ignored the early morning.
Yes, completely ignored it, yet they managed to shift the course of history, literature, and science.
Let's look at that anti-5 a.m. roster. Because the biographical notes in our research pile are just fascinating.
They really are. Take Barack Obama, for instance. During his presidency, he famously referred to himself as a night owl. He rarely went to sleep before 1 a.m.
Wow, running the country on a late-night schedule.
Exactly. His best, most quiet, uninterrupted thinking time, the time when he was reading briefings and organizing his thoughts, was late at night, long after the rest of the White House had shut down.
That's incredible.
And then you look at Charles Darwin, a man who literally rewired our understanding of biological life. Darwin's daily routine was extensively documented, and he didn't even commence his deep, focused work until 10:30 in the morning.
10:30 a.m. I mean, if you told a modern productivity influencer that you were starting your workday at 10:30, they would tell you the day is already wasted. You've lost the morning.
Oh, they would absolutely say that. But Darwin spent his early mornings on leisurely walks and eating breakfast, just letting his mind wander before sitting down to focus.
And the literary world offers even more extreme examples, right?
Definitely. Marcel Proust famously worked entirely through the night. He slept right through the morning in a cork-lined room just to block out the daytime noise.
A cork-lined room. That is dedication to sleeping in.
Right. And Franz Kafka, who was balancing a mundane insurance job with his writing, wrote his absolute masterpieces, the works that defined an entire literary genre between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m.
And my personal favorite from the notes is Winston Churchill.
Oh, Churchill's routine is legendary. He would wake up around 7:30 a.m., but he didn't get out of bed.
He just stayed there.
He worked entirely from his mattress. He dictated memos to his secretaries, read the news, ate breakfast, and he wouldn't physically leave his bed to start his formal day until 11 a.m.
The man helping coordinate a global war effort, dealing with the fate of Europe, was essentially working from under the covers until almost lunchtime.
I just love the image of that. It completely shatters the idea that you need an ice bath at 4 a.m. to be productive.
It really does. It illustrates the core thesis of the research perfectly. There is no single successful sleep schedule. It is a fabricated concept. There is only your optimal sleep schedule.
So if the universal advice of 5 a.m. is a fabrication, and if discipline isn't the deciding factor between Tim Cook waking up at 3:45 a.m. and Kafka writing at 3 a.m., we have to look at what actually dictates those behaviors. Like, what is the biological anchor?
And this is where we have to shift from historical anecdotes into hard, measurable biology. The anchor you are looking for is called a chronotype.
A chronotype.
Yes. In 2016, a prominent clinical sleep specialist named Dr. Michael Breus published groundbreaking research analyzing these distinct biological patterns. He identified that human beings generally fall into one of 4 distinct chronotypes.
So a chronotype is a sort of genetic sleep personality. Exactly. It's a genetically determined sleep-wake cycle hardwired into your DNA. It is not a preference.
It's not just whether you like mornings or not.
No, it dictates not just the hours your body naturally wants to fall asleep and wake up, but crucially, it governs the underlying hormonal shifts that determine when your brain reaches its peak cognitive performance.
Wow.
You cannot alter your chronotype through willpower any more than you can change your height or your eye color.
Let's break down Dr. Bruce's 4 categories, because the percentages here really expose the flaw in the mainstream advice. He categorized them using animal archetypes to make the biological patterns easier to visualize.
He did. So we begin with the first group, the lion. The lions represent roughly 15% of the population.
Just 15%.
Yep. These individuals naturally, without any external alarm clock, wake up between 5 and 6 a.m. Their biological energy peaks very early in the morning. Their cognitive sharpness, their problem-solving ability is highest right after sunrise.
So 15%. This means the people writing all the productivity books, the ones filming the sunrise jogging videos, are naturally part of this tiny minority.
Exactly.
They feel incredible at 5 a.m. They achieve a high level of success because they are working during their biological peak, and then they attribute that success to the hour itself, completely blind to their own genetic advantage.
It is the textbook definition of the survivorship bias we discussed. They assume everyone else has the exact same internal machinery. Which brings us to the second group, the vast majority of human beings, the bear.
What is the biological rhythm of the bear?
Bears make up about 55% of the population. Their biological rhythms are closely tied to the natural solar cycle. They naturally wake up between 7 and 8 a.m. as the sun rises higher.
Okay, that sounds pretty standard.
It is. Their cognitive performance doesn't peak immediately upon waking, though. It builds slowly and hits its maximum capacity right around mid-morning to noon. They are the societal baseline. Traditional office hours were essentially built around, or at least naturally accommodate, the bear chronotype.
So between lions and bears, we have 70% of the population accounted for. Who falls into the next category?
The third group is the wolf, representing another 15% of the population. These are the classic night owls.
The wolves.
Yes. Their natural biologically preferred wake time isn't until 9 or 10 a.m., and their peak cognitive performance is entirely disconnected from the morning. A wolf's brain doesn't reach its highest gear until the late afternoon, often stretching well into the evening hours.
Kafka was undeniably a wolf.
Without question. The quiet of the night aligns perfectly with their natural energy peak. Finally, we have the smallest group, about 10% of the population, the dolphin.
Dolphins.
Dolphins are characterized by highly sensitive sleep architecture. They are light sleepers, their schedules are often irregular, they might wake up multiple times during the night, and their circadian rhythm is easily disrupted. They rarely have a massive, sustained peak of energy, but rather shorter bursts throughout the day.
Running the math on this is startling. I mean, if only 15% of the population are lions, that means this universal cultural mandate to wake up at 5 a.m. to be successful is biologically optimized for only 15% of humanity.
Right. The remaining 85% are attempting to operate on a schedule entirely hostile to their biochemistry.
They're out there torturing themselves for absolutely no biological reason.
Yeah.
And the consequence isn't just that they feel tired, right? When you look at the research, there is a severe biological cost to forcing an incompatible schedule.
Oh, a huge cost.
If a bear, the 55% majority, drags themselves out of bed at 5 a.m., they are forcing their brain to attempt complex tasks 1 to 2 hours before its natural peak alertness.
And the situation is even more detrimental for the wolves. For a wolf, a 5 a.m. wake-up is effectively an interruption of their deep biological night.
It's the middle of the night for them.
Exactly. Their biochemistry is entirely misaligned for consciousness at that hour, let alone productivity. When a wolf's alarm blares at 5 a.m., their levels of melatonin, the hormone responsible for inducing and maintaining sleep, are still incredibly high. Their core body temperature is still at its lowest point.
So forcing work then is useless.
Completely.
Yeah.
Forcing work in this state doesn't generate high output. It guarantees profound cognitive fog.
I know exactly what that fog feels like. On the rare occasions I've attempted the 5 a.m. routine, I don't feel sharp. I feel like I'm moving underwater.
Yes, moving underwater is a great way to describe it.
It's an intense physical sluggishness where I can stare at an email for 10 minutes and not comprehend a single sentence. My brain is physically refusing to boot up. What exactly is happening chemically in the brain of a bear or a wolf that creates that specific underwater feeling?
The mechanism behind that feeling is a fascinating process called the cortisol awakening response, frequently abbreviated in the literature as the KGOR.
Cortisol. Wait, the immediate association most of us have with cortisol is stress. We are constantly reading articles about how we need to lower our cortisol to avoid burnout and weight gain.
And that's true for chronic cortisol, but the distinction between chronic cortisol and the SAR is vital. Chronic cortisol, the kind generated by a toxic workplace, constant anxiety, or financial stress, is indeed damaging to the body over time. However, the cortisol awakening response is entirely different.
How so?
It is a vital, healthy, acute performance enhancer naturally built into our circadian rhythm.
So it's like a natural biological warm-up sequence.
Precisely. When you wake up naturally, in alignment with your genetic chronotype, your brain initiates a massive concentrated surge of cortisol about 30 to 45 minutes after your eyes open. It is not a stress response. It is a carefully timed activation sequence designed to pull you out of sleep inertia.
What is that surge actually doing to the brain hardware?
It serves several precise functions. The cognition sharpens your immediate focus, it dramatically increases your overall alertness, and most importantly, it chemically primes the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex, that's the executive part, right?
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex is the region of your brain responsible for executive function, complex cognitive work, decision-making, emotional regulation, and discipline. The ESI is literally your brain turning on the power supply to your most advanced cognitive servers for the day.
I can visualize that perfectly. It's like warming up a high-performance engine. You can't just walk out to a sports car in freezing weather, turn the key, and expect to redline the engine immediately.
Right. If you do, it's going to stall.
Or you'll severely damage the internal components.
Yeah.
The CIR is the brain's natural, non-negotiable warm-up protocol before you can safely hit the gas.
The engine analogy is highly accurate, and it highlights the critical problem with forcing awake time. This beautiful, natural warm-up sequence is tightly bound to your specific chronotype.
So if you interrupt it,
If you force yourself awake before your body's internal clock is ready to initiate the sequence, say, a bear or a wolf, forcing a 5 a.m. wake-up, you disrupt the entire protocol.
you essentially flood the engine, you force it to run cold.
In clinical terms, you experience a blunted SAR. You do not get the full, robust surge of cortisol required to fully activate the prefrontal cortex. The engine never properly warms up.
That sounds bad.
It is. The data supporting the severity of this is striking. A crucial 2019 study published in the Journal of Sleep Research investigated this exact phenomenon.
Walk me through the methodology of that study. How do they measure the effects of a blunted CIR? Do they just wake people up early?
Basically, yes. The researchers took participants and simply shifted their wake time forward. They didn't deprive them of a massive amount of sleep, mind you. They just had them wake up exactly 90 minutes before their natural, biologically preferred wake time.
90 minutes. That's it.
That's it. They measured their salivary cortisol levels to track the chemical response, and the result was a significantly blunted cortisol awakening response. But the researchers didn't stop at chemical markers. They tested the real-world cognitive effects.
And the participants failed the performance tests.
The degradation was severe. The study detailed that a blunted SIR resulted in measurably lower cognitive performance across virtually all metrics. The participants showed deficits in working memory, their reaction time slowed down, their problem-solving capabilities were hampered, and their ability to sustain focus on complex tasks dropped significantly.
All from just waking up 90 minutes early.
Yes. And the most alarming part, this impairment didn't just last for the first 10 minutes after waking. The cognitive deficit lingered for the first 4 hours of their day.
4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 4 full hours.
So if a natural wolf forces themselves awake at 5 a.m. to hustle, they're practically guaranteeing that their brain operates at a massive deficit until at least 9 a.m.
It's like trying to do your most important work on a smartphone, running on 1% battery in low power mode. You might be able to perform basic functions, but any background apps, any complex processing is completely shut down. They are making themselves functionally less intelligent in the name of productivity.
Chemically speaking, their prefrontal cortex is underpowered. They are operating in a persistent fog during those critical morning hours when they are supposedly getting ahead of the competition.
I have to play devil's advocate here because the hustle culture narrative has an answer for this.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
The argument is always about adaptation. The idea is that the body is highly adaptable. If you just power through the pain for a few weeks, if you maintain the 5 a.m. wake up through sheer discipline, your circadian rhythm will eventually shift and adapt to the new schedule.
Well, the 2019 study specifically tested for adaptation, and the findings completely dismantle that argument.
Wait, really? They didn't adapt?
The researchers observed the participants over time, and the participants did not adapt. You cannot permanently override your genetic chronotype through behavioral repetition.
Say grit doesn't matter.
Not at all. Every single day, these participants fought their biology, their cortisol awakening response remained blunted, and their cognitive performance remained impaired.
That is a staggering realization. All those people telling themselves, I just need to get used to it. I just need to push through another week of 5 a.m. alarms. They're fighting a war against their own DNA. And it is a war they will lose every single morning.
You are attempting to fight millions of years of evolutionary biology with a cheap digital alarm clock. The biology will always win.
Knowing that the 5 a.m. mandate is a myth, which honestly is a massive relief, leaves us with a vital question. If waking up early isn't the magic key, if the specific time on the clock doesn't bestow success, what actually drives high-level cognitive performance? How do we build a day that functions optimally?
Discarding the arbitrary 5 a.m. rule allows us to focus on the actual scientifically validated pillars of human performance. The research points to incredibly clear, undeniable factors. And the first pillar is sleep consistency.
So the focus shifts from the hour on the clock to the repetition of the habit.
Exactly. The most powerful predictor of cognitive performance on any given day is not when you wake up, but how consistently you wake up at that specific time.
Meaning a person who naturally wakes up at 8 a.m. 7 days a week